Welcome back to Luke's Properties YouTube channel. In this video, I'm going to talk to you about a rent-to-rent deal that was making me £800 per month that I gave back. Yes, that's right, I gave it back to the estate agent. It wasn't by choice, it was by force. I had this property for 1 year, we made some good money from it, we learned loads of lessons, but unfortunately, we had to give it back to the estate agent after only having it for 1 year. So in this video, I'm going to explain to you why we gave it back, what happened, and the lessons that I learned. So this was, I think, my third or fourth rent-to-rent property. I got this back in 2018. It was a 4-bedroom house in Newport, South Wales. And how I got this house on a rent-to-rent deal was I saw it advertised on Rightmove by an estate agent who I had been working with. So I'd built up a good relationship with them. And the reason why this house caught my attention was because it was being marketed as a single let. So the landlady had asked the estate agent to market her house as a single let property, even though it had an HMO license for 4 people. So it was priced at around £595 per month. Back then, that was the going rate for a normal 3 or 4 bed terraced house. So as soon as I saw this come on the market, I read the description, and in the description it actually said could be used as an HMO. So that caught my attention straight away. I called the agent, arranged a viewing. The viewing went well. There was 4 lettable rooms, 3 bedrooms upstairs, and one of the downstairs reception rooms had been converted into a bedroom. So I jumped at the opportunity. I agreed to take it on from the estate agent, paid the money, got the keys, furnished it, and within about a week to 10 days, I had 4 contractors living in this house, paying me £400 per room. So we was collecting around £1,600 in total. I spent around £2,000 on furnishing the property. I gave the agent the first month's rent and 1 month deposit, which cost me around £1,200, and then I spent £2,000 on furniture. So all in, this investment cost me around £3,000 to £3,200. So the rent was £595 a month. I rented it to 4 contractors for £400 per month per room. The monthly profit after all expenses was £800 a month. The yearly profit was £9,600, which worked out to be a 3 times return on investment on the initial £3,000 investment. Not a bad piece of business. Now here's where things went wrong. So after 12 months, I got an email from the estate agent saying that the landlady wanted to sell. I remember being absolutely gutted because this house was making me £800 a month. It was so straightforward. I had some good tenants in there and they were looking to stay there for another year. So when I received the email from the agent saying the landlady wanted to sell, I remember this sinking feeling in my stomach. I emailed the agent back and tried to arrange a conversation with the landlady. They told me I could only speak to her through them, which I found quite frustrating. I asked them to ask her if we could extend the rental term. The agent emailed me back and said that's not something she wants to do. She wants to sell. And I just remember feeling so disappointed. I didn't give up. I'd done some due diligence on her. I found her email and I sent her an email myself from my company explaining to her that things were going well. We had some good tenants in the house. They wanted to extend for another year and we'd be happy to increase the rent for another year if she'd allow us to keep renting. The landlady was based abroad. I think she lived in Italy at the time. It took her a few days to email me back, but eventually she did, and she politely told me that her mind was made up and that she wanted to sell, and there's basically nothing I could do to convince her otherwise. So I remember feeling so disappointed. I was gutted at this point. This was in my first year of rent to rent, so the business was still very new to me. I tried to convince her to keep working with us, but she obviously wanted to sell. Maybe she wanted to move on and do other things with the money. Maybe she wanted to buy somewhere else. Or maybe she was just a landlord at the end of her landlord cycle, looking to cash in and retire. Either way, it was very disappointing for me, for the business. It felt like a backward step. Luckily, I had been marketing my services to other landlords, and by the end of that year, I had other properties and I was able to move these 4 tenants into another property half a mile down the road. So that worked out. I didn't lose the tenants. I didn't have to kick them out, but I did lose the property. The key lessons that I learned from this were, this gave me proof of concept that rent to rent worked. This was one of my first rent to rent deals. This was the early days when I was still building my confidence, and the fact that I had rented a house like this from an estate agent, invested around £3,000 into it, and then rented it out to 4 sharers, and I was making around £800 per month in profit. This gave me even more proof of concept. I had a few other rent to rents at the time, but this was one of my better deals, and this just gave me so much more self-belief and confidence in the service and it helped me when I was pitching to other landlords and agents because I had photos of this property. I showed them the type of tenants that I had found for this property, and I used this property as a case study to convince other landlords to work with me. So this was a really good stepping stone. Unfortunately, we had to give it back, but this house taught me that rent to rent was real and that it worked. Another lesson I learned from this house was always aim for longer term agreements from the start. So initially we agreed to a 12-month tenancy with the landlady. If we had agreed to a 3-year tenancy, for example, then maybe she would have felt less inclined to sell. Maybe she would have felt like she was tied into a 3-year agreement, and maybe she might have honoured that. I guess we'll never know now. But because I was still quite new to the business and the estate agent was still getting used to us, we decided to do a 12-month initial term with the view of extending hopefully in the future. But if I had agreed to a longer term tenancy, then I might still have this house today. Who knows? Or maybe she would have just decided to sell regardless of the contract, in which case there wouldn't have been much I could have done. But I guess a lesson from this house was always aim for a longer term agreement from the start. The final lesson I learned from this house was even short-term wins build your belief and experience. So even though we only had this house for 12 months, I still learned loads. As I said, my confidence grew from working with this house. My self-belief grew. My belief in the business model grew. It was just unfortunate that we only had it for 12 months. But I learned loads from this rent to rent deal, and I'll always remember it. And even though I only had it for 12 months, I still managed to 3x my initial investment of £3,000. I still turned £3,000 into £9,600 in that 12-month period. Had I kept it for another 4 or 5 years, then I would have made £50,000 back from a £3,000 investment, which I have done with other properties. So I guess the main lesson here is, even if a rent to rent deal gets cut short and you only have it for 12 months, if you do your numbers right and you find a good deal, then you can still 3x your initial investment. There's not many other businesses where you can do that in such a short space of time. I then used that £9,600 to go and take on 2 more rent to rent properties that I ended up keeping for 5-6 years. So there's always a silver lining. And even in the worst case scenario of having to give back a rent to rent deal early, we still managed to 3x our initial investment. We were still profitable. We learnt loads. We turned £3,000 into over £9,000, and then we rolled that money into 2 more deals, which were better deals that we kept for a longer period of time. So this is why I gave back a rent to rent that was making me £800 per month. It wasn't by choice, it was by force, but I still managed to make money. I learnt loads of lessons, and I grew as a person and as a business. This is why I love rent to rent so much, because not only did I treble my initial investment in 12 months, but I also learned loads along that journey. And this is the power of rent to rent. You can earn money and learn along the way. So if you're watching this video and you're on the fence about taking on your first rent to rent deal, take the plunge, because even in the worst case scenarios, there's still money to be made and there's still valuable lessons to be learned. If you want someone to help you get your first rent to rent deal, then I'll leave a link in the description below. Click the link and there'll be an opportunity to book in a call with myself. On that call, we can work out if we're a good fit for each other and if I'd be a good mentor for you. So click the link and book a call. It's free, so why wouldn't you? If not, then just watch my YouTube videos, learn from my journey, and go out there and build your own rent to rent portfolio. I hope you've enjoyed this video, guys, and as always, I'll see you on the next one.